When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned? He said, will you defeat them, your demons, and all the...
Welcome to Young Turks. We, of course, have a fun and exciting show ahead for you. A little bit later in the program, naked yoga. Is it for straight people? Good question. We're going to try to find out. And we've got aliens landing. Don't make me do it. Okay, all right. Aliens later in the program. All right, now, you know, I've got updates on every single issue, whether it's Michael Steele, et cetera, but financial reform, you know I'm going to do that. You can't run away from it, man. I'm coming for it. Now, but I think, to be honest, I'll probably do it in the next segment. I think the most important story of the day is about this Don Blankenship guy, the guy who ran the mine where there was the disaster in West Virginia. When you see how he got away with all of his safety violations, it goes to show you exactly what's wrong with our government and exactly what's wrong with the Republican Party in particular in this case, okay? So I think that's the story of the day. I don't want you to miss that. That's coming up in a little bit, okay? Now, I'm going to start off by being a bad guy. So they've caught the guy that was threatening Nancy Pelosi. He had called her house, according to some sources, 48 times. His name is Gregory Lee Giusti, and he had, well, wow. As you look at him, you think, okay, I can see how he made the menacing calls. And he said, you know, if you ever want to see your house again, you better not pass health care reform. He gave her address, said, I know where you live, etc. I mean, as dozens of angry, threatening, yelling, scolding, but much more importantly, threatening violence in all of these calls, right? So now that they caught him, he goes into court, and guess what he does? Cried like a baby. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make the calls. Well, wait, I thought you were a tough guy. What happened? No, but like on the phone, you were really, really tough. But now that you're in court and you're facing a year in jail and $250,000 worth of fines because threatening the life of a congressperson is a very serious crime. But all of a sudden, you're not so tough. Hey, Jesus, let me see his picture again. I believe this was exactly... Jay, we got the verbatim quote of him at court? Yeah? Okay, all right.
Oh my God, I am totally sorry for that.
I regret it. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. That was just my mistake and my bad. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. Now that I'm done being a dick about it, okay. This story has an unfortunate turn. I mean, the whole story is unfortunate, but the judge believes he might have bipolar disorder. And apparently he does this on a regular basis. Well, throughout his life at least. He's 48 years old. He once threatened a guy on a commuter train. He threatened people at the Hamilton Square Baptist Church in San Francisco. But look, you have to take this incredibly seriously because we don't know who has bipolar disorder and a gun, and who has bipolar disorder and doesn't have a gun, right? So even if it's bipolar disorder, that's not an excuse. Of course, us being the libs that we are, it makes us feel a little worse for him, right? The guy seems to be a little touched. Now, but I'm incredibly happy that they took this seriously because the minute you don't take it seriously, you're going to have real trouble. Now, as I saw the story and I found out about the background of this guy, I thought, God, see, that's the problem with people like Glenn Beck egging on their audience. Because you don't know who has bipolar disorder in your audience. Now, look, you can't be responsible for everyone in your audience. I know that, of course, right? But that's why you have to be a little careful, And You can't go around saying, oh my God, Nancy Pelosi is going to come and take you and your family and destroy it and destroy America and drive a stake through its heart and Obama's the vampire and oh my God, you better make sure that they don't destroy our country and your family, etc. Because you can't assume everybody in the audience is rational, especially if your audience is Fox News, right? Let alone the people who are really mentally damaged and that you're egging on. Now, I thought all that, and then JR found a clip of his mom, Juicy's mom. And look at what she says. Apparently, she totally agrees. Let's go to clip number 8 here.
Well, ABC 7 News I-Team reporter Dan Noyes has been looking into Juicy's criminal history. And Dan, you managed to reach his mother as well.
Oh, we did, Carolyn and Dan. Juicy's 83-year-old mother hadn't heard that her son had been arrested, but she told us he has a history of mental problems. She doesn't think he would be capable of carrying out the threat. He has never owned a gun. And she blames Fox News for getting her son worked up.
Yes, Greg frequently gets in with a group of people that have really radical ideas and that are not consistent with myself or the rest of the family, and which gets him into problems. And apparently I would say this must be another one that somehow he's gotten onto, either by, I say, Fox News or all of those that are really radical, and that's where he comes from.
Now, the mother, Eleanor Giusti, also told us she talked to her son earlier in the day. Apparently, before the arrest, he asked about his niece and his nephew and acted as though nothing was going on.
See, if you have these mentally unbalanced people and you combine it with Glenn Beck, well, that's a recipe for disaster. And apparently Juicy's mom also agrees. We got to watch out for this, man. If you have, people who are a little touched in your family, don't let them watch Fox News. You never know what they'll do. Okay. Am I the bad guy? No, I don't think so. I think I'm the good guy, but couldn't tell from the beginning of that Juicy story. All right. So, now speaking of Fox News, Scott, they're wonderfully goofy. So they did a poll about Biden. You know how Biden said about Obama's health care plan on that day that it passed, thinking he was off mic, shook Obama's hand and said, this is a big fucking deal, man. All right. So Fox is like, we got him. We got him. Oh, the vice president said a dirty word, a dirty, naughty word. And so they did a poll on it. Now, I don't remember them doing a poll on whether Dick Cheney telling Pat Leahy to fuck off was dirty or naughty or unacceptable or offensive. But anyway, they commissioned a poll, and they asked people, as you may have heard, Vice President Joe Biden used foul language to describe how important he thought the passage of the new health care bill was, when whispered to Obama, this is a big expletive deal. Do you think the Vice President's use of foul language to describe the bill was offensive or not? 37% offensive. 57% no, not offensive. They couldn't even get past the Fox News audience. So they're like, now, no, to be fair, they polled the general population, okay? But it was a Fox News poll, okay? So that I should be clear on that. So they asked me, oh, that's offensive, right? And people are like, nah, not really. You know what? Now, I don't happen to agree that it was a big fucking deal. I think it was a medium-sized deal, okay? But I'm not offended by it, and I don't know a lot of regular Americans that are. Wow, the vice president cursed. Who cares? So, nice try, Fox. Nice try. But it didn't really work out for you this time around, okay? People are funny, man. All right, good luck to you next time. All right, now, I got one more Fox story for you. Greta Van Susteren has Harry Reid on, and she's going to ask him about that Nebraska deal. Now, let's remember, the Nebraska deal in the health care bill got taken out. And as Harry Reid's about to explain, it actually was applied to all of the states. So it wasn't in the bill, but she's going to go back because people hated that, and she's trying to rub it. But you know what? Look, she's a reporter for the opposition party. That's her job. No problem with that. Let's see how Harry Reid answers that.
No, I'll tell you what happened, I think, is you met with Senator Ben Nelson and gave the Nebraska deal, because that's what, when I was up in Massachusetts in early January, they were absolutely furious about the Nebraska deal. I think that sunk her.
Well, perhaps.
Because it's hard to lose that many points.
But remember, the Nebraska deal was terrific for our country. Why do I say that? Because now everybody has a Nebraska deal. Every state in the union has a Nebraska deal.
I don't think that. I mean, I think that maybe. I don't think a lot of people feel like you do, Senator, on that. I think there are a lot of people who are disturbed about the fact that on the eve of the vote, that two United States senators meet, and President Obama had promised transparency, and so all of a sudden Senator Ben Nelson walks out and he suddenly says, "I'm going to vote on this," and it wasn't your promise on transparency, I might add. It was President Obama's. "I'm going to vote on this, and I got a special deal for my state." And all the other states are just standing around saying, "Well, what about us?"
Well, do you think it would have been better that I just let the bill fail?
I don't.
You're speechless, most of you.
Speechless? I don't think, this is the way it appeared to the American people, is that this Senator Ben Nelson, was for sale. That's the way it looked like. And that it was a sale, the price that all the other American taxpayers are paying for, and nobody understood, even many people in Nebraska didn't understand, like, why he got this.
Greta, let me say this. I know that Fox loves to berate anything that's Democratic in nature, but let me just say this. Ben Nelson is an honorable man, really a good senator. He represents his state extremely well. And Ben Nelson and I worked on a number of issues. We of course, worked on the Medicaid issue. He is former governor of the state. He understands it very well. And I knew that if I got this for Nebraska, by the time this legislation got out of the Senate, I would have it for everybody. And that's what happened. And I'm totally comfortable with that.
Why did he get that? If you thought everybody was going to get it that day when you met with Senator Ben Nelson, why didn't you offer it to everybody?
Because I didn't have it for everybody at that time. I thought I could get it as we moved along in the legislation, and I did.
Part of the reason that we show these clips is because they provide a good opportunity to break down how politics in the country works and also how the media works, right? So is she right to press on the Nelson compromise? Well, look, first of all, those kind of compromises happen all the time. You know, I had tremendous issues with the health care bill. But when they struck the Nebraska deal, I was like, well, it sucks, but it's only something that's been happening as long as America's been around. It's politics, it's horse trading. And they did it. I didn't like it, but I thought that was one of the least problematic parts of the bill. Okay, but should the media press on that? Yeah, sure. If people are mad about it, and they, and Fox News finds something that they're mad about and press on it, there's nothing wrong with that. That's also how it's supposed to work. The media is supposed to challenge the people in power, and eventually they got the Nebraska deal expanded to everybody. And you know what? To be fair and honest, you have to give a little bit of credit to the conservative media there. They harped on it so much that basically they took the Nebraska exception out and made it for everybody. Without that pressure, would they have? Probably, if nobody had mentioned it, no, they probably wouldn't have, and only Nebraska would have gotten that deal. So that's the good side of it. Now, the part that you're not seeing in that clip, the Nebraska deal was tiny part of the bill, okay? Not to say it shouldn't be corrected, I just said it should, right? But the much larger problem, for example, you want to talk about deals. We have, I've talked about it 100 times, but let me just give you two quick examples from the drug companies. One is we're not allowed to negotiate. The government is not allowed to negotiate prices with the drug companies, which is so mind-numbingly inexplicable, other than the fact that corporate America owns our government. I mean, why can't the government negotiate prices? Number two, we're not allowed to import cheaper drugs that do the same exact thing from abroad. So it guarantees a monopoly for the drug companies. Now, that's 1,000,000 times larger than the Nebraska deal. So the question is, why isn't Fox News harping on that? Because if they think they got the president or the Democrats in a tight spot, I mean, you see this. Look, Greta's coming back to that deal even after it's removed from the bill, and the bill passed weeks ago, right? But she's going to come back and try to dig into that wound, right? So why don't they make a much bigger deal out of a much bigger wound? Well, that's because the Republicans were in favor of those compromises. Bush did the same exact thing. The Republican Party pushed for that monopoly for the drug companies, and Fox News is part of the corporate media that loves deals like that. So when it costs you real money, gigantic money, billions of dollars in deals like that, shush. Fox News won't tell you, and most of the corporate media won't tell you. Instead, they'll go and nitpick on these little things and play games. They're playing games with you. And they're taking you for fools. And I think, to my credit, I get pissed about it every time. Every time I look at it, I go, diversion, man. They're just trying to get people riled up about all of the wrong things while the money keeps walking out the back door. So if you're a conservative, you should hold Fox News' feet to the fire and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you attack Obama and the Democrats on the billions they gave away to the drug companies? Why don't you ask the Republicans why they were in favor of that? Those would be interesting questions. All right. You know what? Now that we're on it, I'm going to do one more. Okay, that is tangentially related to Fox. I like to build themes within the segments. Okay, apparently our theme for this segment is Fox News. Now, Representative John Fleming is going to be talking about that Florida doctor who turned away the Obama patients. It's going to be a couple of twists and turns here. He throws in Fox News. Let's take a look at the clip. Number 2.
More doctors do like the doctor, the urologist in Florida has done, and refuse to take it and put up a sign. Then what can they do? They can't put them all in jail, or what will happen?
Her question is, what about this urologist in Florida who put up a sign, if you voted for Obama, you need not come here for care? I applaud what he said and did, and it's his First Amendment right to do that. The problem you get into is that you have to be very careful that the media doesn't demonize you as they all. Well, I know you say, well, so what? But the problem is there are a lot of people who don't have the strong feelings that you do, who are sitting on the fence. And this has happened many times before. Look at President Bush. Now, President Bush made some mistakes. But by the time he finished his 8 years, this guy, in the eyes of most Americans, was an absolute idiot. His approval rating was down to 32%. He was attacked in all sorts of ways, and they got by with it. So you see, that's something that we conservatives have to be very careful about, and even you, the Tea Party people, where, you know, the claims have been made that you've spat upon people and that you use racial epithets. Now, we know that isn't true. Andrew Breitbart put out a $100,000 bounty on anybody who could produce any evidence that any of that happened. And no one has stepped forward. Yet, the mainstream media still goes out there and talks about it. Even Fox sometimes talks about it. And they put Republicans into a defensive position. They put you in a defensive position. So you see, we're definitely fighting with one hand tied behind our back. So we have to be very careful to be effective without being characterized as wingnuts and marginal militiamen and people like that, like they're trying to do to you.
I like how he's trying to talk down to Tea Party people. And then every time he says, okay, look, we should be a little calm. They're like, somebody grab a gun. Okay, I'm being a little unfair. Anyway, I love the part where he's like, look, by the time Bush left, everybody thought he was an idiot. Let's keep it real, right? Come on, let's try not to look like as big an idiot as Bush did going forward. Well, so those are the words of a wise man. Now, why do you think even Fox News says that the congressmen were spit upon and they were called racial epithets? Because it happened. Okay. Now, Andrew Breitbart thinks he's cute. What he said is, anybody who produces video evidence, they didn't have sound. So how could you produce video evidence of someone saying the N-word or the F-word to Barney Frank when there was no sound on the video? So, you know, at least the ones I've seen, right? And the spitting is on camera, right? But he doesn't count that. And you see a guy like spitting on the congressman, but he's like, well, was it really spitting? In slow motion, I didn't see the spittle come. Okay, so I'm not really counting that. And, well, people heard them use the N-word or that. Well, those don't count. I need it on videotape. Okay, all right. I mean, I guess you think you're cute, right? Anyway, the bottom line is, Fleming here and the whole Republican Party, and we're going to get back to this later in the show, desperately trying to hold on to the Tea Party. It's like a wild bull they're riding, right? And they're the rodeo clowns. And they're like, okay, come on, guys. Oh, no, we're going to be all right. Hate them. No, not them. No, say terrible things. No, but not that. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, man. My guess is you're not going to last 8 seconds on that bull. Look at that rodeo reference. Wasn't there like a cheesy movie made by some Beverly Hills 90210 kid about that? Under 8 seconds? 8 seconds is probably pretty long. Anyway, so good luck to you on riding the bull. So, one last thing about the Tea Party guys, and then we'll come back to them. New polls out. Got this. All right, I got to come back to this stuff because they say 28% of Americans identify themselves as Tea Party supporters, according to Gallup poll. Another poll, Winston Group, said 17%. People are trumpeting these around like, oh, those are big numbers. Big numbers. No, we've always known that 20 to 30% of the country was mental. What's new about that? Like 30% of the country will vote for a right-wing Republican without question. I mean that literally, okay? I'm always reminded of that voter who told the Associated Press in 2004, I don't care what you tell me about Bush. God told me to vote for him. Okay? Which facts are irrelevant to me. That's about 20 to 30%. You know, on a good day, we hope it's only 25%. On a bad day, sometimes you're worried it gets up to 30%. And look at the Tea Parties are, according to the polls, 17 to 28%. Bingo. So we'll come back to that issue. When we come back, though, Don Blankenship, the mine disaster, and the very important lessons you can learn from that. Young Turks.
Shout it, rock to the beat for your boy. Shout it, yeah, do yeah.
Hey, it's Loso in case you ain't know so. Hey, Dream, let me tell you about Shorty. Shorty is the sugar honey iced tea. Prettiest one I see. Little mama icy. They say she a Pisces. I heard they are feisty. You know how to treat her. She'll be sweeter than a high C. Clean up very nicely. Shoes are kinda pricey. Match them up precisely. Good jean, nice tea, like a food spicy. And she is the same, hotter than a flame. But I do not know her name. Is it Keisha? Is it Tisha? Maybe Lisa? Or Teresa?
Back on the Young Turks. Now I think the most important story of the day, part where we really try to let you know how the government actually works. So you remember the disaster, of course, in West Virginia with the mine, 25 killed. They're still looking for the 4 others that are missing. One of the worst disasters in mining history in the last 25 years. The company involved was Massey Energy. Their CEO is Don Blankenship. Now you are going to find out the story behind them. We already knew that they had 57 violations in the last month alone. They had millions of dollars of fines, which at this point they were largely ignoring. And a lot of these were for safety violations. And in fact, the government was worried that they didn't have the proper fans to let out the gas. And it turns out they didn't, and it blew up, okay? So how did Massey, throughout all this time, avoid massive fines for the things that they've done wrong and the safety violations, et cetera? Well, it really helps if you wind up buying the government. Turns out that, of course, the CEO, Don Blankenship, is a right-wing activist millionaire who gives a tremendous amount of money to, you're going to be really surprised, the Republican Party. And what does he get for his money? That's the really important issue. And then how does it affect what's happened so far? Number one, during the Bush years, what Bush did was he took Massey COO, Chief Operating Officer, Stanley Sobolewski, and named him Commissioner of Federal Mine Safety and Health Review Commission in 2003. So this is exactly what I told you about earlier. What Bush would do is take the guys who are in the industry and put them in charge of regulating the industry. And you're going to be shocked to find out that they wouldn't, right? So, but wait till you hear what happened to Sobolewski afterwards. He was also nominated in 2007 to run the Energy Department's Office of Fossil Energy, and on it goes. You want to know where Sobolewski is now? He's back on the board of Massey making a lot of money. Really? Wow, that's so surprising. So he starts out with the company, he goes in, makes sure there's no regulations of the company and the rest of the industry, comes back out and gets a lot of money from that same company for not regulating them earlier. And that's how this merry-go-round goes around. There were other people in the industry. Another executive for Massey was this guy named Dick Stigler. And in the 1990s, he not only saw the Massey subsidiary Performance Coal, but also Beth Energy Mines, which incurred injury rates double the national average And of course, for having such a terrible safety record, Bush nominated him, and he could not get past the Senate. So in 2006, Bush did a recess appointment, and then again in 2008, he named him acting secretary as a recess appointment expired. So even if the Senate didn't agree, Bush just took those industry guys and put them in power. Now, what effect did that have? Well, that's the unfortunate part. Well, a couple of disasters have already hit Massey mines. One was the October 2000 coal slurry spill. They spilled 300 million gallons of black toxic sludge into the headwaters of Coldwater Creek and Wolf Creek. 3 times larger than the Exxon Valdez spill. Did you guys hear about that? Maybe some of you heard about it, but it didn't get a lot of press. Well, Jesus, I'll tell you what though, they got a $2.4 billion fine. $2.4 billion. So what am I talking about? Turns out they couldn't buy the politicians. The Bush people were true to their word. Oh, that didn't stick. Huh, really? Well, in 2002, U.S. Secretary of Labor Elaine Chao, remember she's Secretary of Labor, supposed to be helping the workers, right? She actually takes over and says, you know what, I think their fine should be $5,600. And she kicks over to her husband, Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. He's the leader now. He was in leadership at the time, okay? And they decide, yeah, let's shake on it, $5,600. Now, eventually, I mean, that's so egregious, they can't get away with it. The EPA files suit, and eventually Massey settles in court for $20 million. $20 million sounds like a lot, right? But the Republicans were trying to get away with $5,000. Unbelievable. All right, anyway, $20 million sounds like a lot, right? But when you cause $2 billion worth of damages that the state has to pick up and the taxpayers have to pick up, $20 million is nothing. Ding, nothing. All right, so they do tremendous damage to the environment. But they never caused the deaths of anybody before, right? How about the Aracoma mine fire, also from Massey's Aracoma Coal Company? That happened in 2006, and they had to plead guilty in court, the company did, to 10 criminal charges, including 1 felony, and pay a $2.5 million fine in criminal fines. And eventually they also paid $1.7 million in civil fines. Why was that? Because 2 people were burned alive when they ignored safety violations. Now, how were they allowed to ignore safety violations? Why are those 2 people burned to death? Well, funny enough, it turns out days before the fire broke out in the Aracoma mine, a federal mine inspector tried to close down that section of the mine. So look, the government doing its job. The mine inspector comes in and says, this is dangerous. He nailed it a couple of days before the accident happened. So they closed it down, right? No, of course not. The guys that Bush put in as the superiors, who are now part of the industry, overruled that guy. He was told by the superior, the mine inspector was, told by the superior to, quote, back off and let them run coal, that there was too much demand for coal and that they should just go ahead and run it. And a couple of days later, a couple of guys burn up alive. They knew it was there. They knew the problem was there. And they do it all the time. And then they think, what difference does it make? We pay a little fine here and a little fine there. Our main job is to run coal. Worker safety be damned. Environmental pollution, who cares? Bush is in charge. I already bought McConnell, I bought Chao, I bought Bush. I don't have to pay these much larger fines. I don't have to pay the real costs. And I don't have to protect my workers. Here's Blankenship, the CEO of the company, wrote this memo at the same time, a couple of months before the fire broke out. He wrote, if any of you have been asked by your group presidents, your supervisors, engineers, or anyone else to do anything other than run coal, you need to ignore them and run coal. This memo is necessary only because we seem not to understand that coal pays the bills. So if you got a supervisor or an engineer or a mine inspector who's a pain in your ass, ignore them. You got safety violations, ignore them. And if a couple people burn alive, who cares? We'll sweep it up under the rug, okay? In fact, we have Blankenship in June of 2006, that same year, talking to the press and telling them, oh, don't worry, safety violations. Clip number 7.
Are you concerned that the safety regulations or the safety factors in your industry, particularly through Massey, are being complied with?
Well, they're very difficult to comply with. There's so many of the laws that are, if you will, nonsensical from an engineering or a coal mining viewpoint. A lot of the politicians get emotional, as does the public, about the most recent accident, and it's easy to get laws on the books that are not truly helping the health or safety of coal miners. And I think we need to be very pragmatic and very careful when we're passing laws of that nature to make sure that we create as much safety and as much health as can be created for each of the resources we expend.
Do you feel you have a good safety record at Massey?
Well, it's been 19 the last 20 years. It's been far better than the industry average. We've had very good success on the safety and the environmental side.
That was in June of 06. In January of 06 is when the guy's burned alive. Oh, he's like, people are over-focusing on that. Well, at the time that they burned alive, they already had 25 violations of mandatory health and safety laws. Now, he swept it under the rug. The government allowed him to do that. The Republicans and Bush allowed him to do that. And guess what happened? When you build up something that's wrong and you let it go and you let it go, it blows up. And in this case, it literally blew up. And now 25 or 29 more people have died at those same mines with those same violations that were ignored time and time again. This is how the rich in this country and corporate America, not all the rich and not all the corporations, but some, go and buy your government. They buy Republicans, they buy Democrats. Now, as it turns out, Republicans play ball a lot better than Democrats do. That's why historically they've gotten a lot more donations from these guys. And, if you think it doesn't matter whether you vote for a Republican or a Democrat, I feel your pain, and I think the Democrats sell out to these guys way, way too often. But this is exactly why it does matter, because when the Republicans get in charge, they think consumer protection, worker protection are a joke. They're just something that's a hassle to their rich buddies who want to make a couple more bucks. And if 25 people blow up in a mine, who cares? They don't come to their cocktail parties. They don't know those guys. Those are just workers. They're expendable. It matters, man. It matters. And so Republicans are much worse at this, and this is the perfect example. But it's not like the Democrats have clean hands. This is how these people buy our government, and you should be sick of it. And there's got to be a bounds of reason to this. There's got to be a moment where we say, enough is enough. We got to take back our government so it represents us and not the Don Blankenships of the world, not the Massey Energies of the world. There's a reason why we need government. It's supposed to protect us, whether that's national security or your local police department or your local fire department or regulators who say, hey, you know what? Put a fan in your mine so the gas doesn't build up and blow up and kill all those people. And then Blankenship will come up afterwards and go, what? Our safety record is fine. A lot of drama in the press over people dying. Who cares? Do you know how much more money I made last year? Their attitude is repulsive. I don't know when we're going to stop taking it in this country. All right. But as our government currently stands, there's nothing to stop them. They're going to continue to buy those politicians, and they're going to continue to do this until we all blow up. And I don't mean that literally, and I don't want anybody going in the Fox News direction, okay? But we got to have some sort of political upheaval here, because we don't run our country anymore. These guys do, and it's sickening. Young Turks.
I am an opera singer. I stand on painted tape. It tells me where I'm going and where to throw my cape.
Listen, you don't understand what's happening. Not only are we back with Casper, but she's going to bring it. You know what she's going to do? She's going to...
I'm going to not release the Kraken.
Release the Kraken!
Oh, God.
Okay, I know. I'm nearly done. No? You don't think so, JR? Keep it going?
He's not nearly done.
Okay. Okay. Casper, you know what I think of these stories for the third hour?
Mm-hmm.
I like them.
Yes.
I think they are very, very fun. I've been looking forward to the third hour the whole day.
Yeah, we have some really great stories.
But first, a little bit more on financial reform. Okay, now I'm playing. Okay, go ahead.
By the way, next week, Simon Johnson will be in studio. And I'm hoping that our studio will be in good condition for that.
Well, that's up to you, isn't it? All right, now listen, seriously, all kidding aside, I have Simon Johnson in studio for 40 minutes or whatever. I've been looking forward to that ever since you said it, for weeks. I'm like, that's the big day. That's the big day. Okay, no, I'm like a kid in a candy store.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sit him down, and this is what we're going to do on that day. I'm going to say, look, here's why I think this thing's going to blow, right? But you need to talk me off the ledge. I need him to tell me, no, here's what you got wrong,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So I can go, oh, okay, my bad. America's fine. We're not going to collapse, right?
And if he tells you that you're absolutely right and America is going to collapse, what are you going to do?
Get back on the ledge.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other thing I could do is
release the Kraken.
All right, let's do some stories.
All right, we'll figure out what happens. He's in the house, man. He's in the house. So let's see what happens on the 16th. That's a big day. All right, now what do you got?
I want to start with a Wisconsin prosecutor who is threatening educators in Wisconsin by saying that if they teach comprehensive sex education, they might face charges.
Okay, good. Okay. First of all, I mean, here's what I like. People threatening educators. Way to go. That's a great start, okay? And then second of all, if they are by law mandated to teach sex ed, well, then you should obviously arrest them for it. Way to go.
Now, his reasoning behind this is crazy, okay? By the way, his name is Scott Southworth, all right? And he says that teachers should ignore a new law that requires them to teach about contraceptives. And the reason why he should do that is because teaching about contraceptives encourages young people to have sex, and underage sex is illegal in Wisconsin. So if you're contributing to that, then you should face charges for it.
Well, obviously. And so if you're a teacher, if you don't teach it, you'll be fired. If you do teach it, you'll be arrested. So what are you supposed to do? Who knows? So they're asking their lawyers, what the hell are we supposed to do about this thing? We actually have a little video on this news story. Okay, it's clip number 9, and he's going to give us a colorful analogy as well. Let's watch.
It's one thing to instruct students about human biology, human physiology, reproduction. It's quite another to cross that line and to start teaching students how to engage in sex for pleasure.
According to Wisconsin prosecutor Scott Southworth, a new state law has crossed that line. It allows teachers to instruct students on the proper use of contraceptives such as condoms.
To encourage children to have sex in any way, shape, or form is egregious.
Southworth has threatened teachers in his county that if they follow the sex education law and teach about contraceptives, he might charge them with contributing to the delinquency of a minor.
Is akin to saying we need to teach kids how to make mixed drinks because some kids are going to illegally drink alcohol.
The law requires that teachers also teach that about the criminal law, and that it would be a crime for them to be having sex if they're under 18.
Southworth says the law would sexualize children, but his opponents say he is overstepping his bounds.
To use those beliefs to try to threaten teachers who are simply trying to implement the law and help students understand the consequences of their actions. To do that is really, I think, close to an abuse of his office.
Why did they keep showing the legs of young girls in that video? They're like sexualizing these teenagers. Look at their legs. Okay, now look, this jackass. I love the mixed drinks thing. I mean, look, it's illegal. What are you going to do? And then show them how to do a Long Island iced tea? No, but what we did do in high school, I remember, even before we could drive, or certainly before we can drink, we had cautionary classes on drunk driving. And they would tell you the dangers of drunk driving, et cetera, et cetera. They weren't encouraging you to drink. In fact, they were trying to discourage you in a lot of ways. And they were telling you how to drive safely, even though at that time we didn't have a license yet and we weren't allowed to drink. You see, it's called an education.
Right. look, the thing that irritates me is this is standard Republican procedure, okay? Scare tactics, all right? To get your agenda through, to make sure that you achieve whatever goal you have, whatever conservative goal you have. It's super annoying, okay? And look, even in that video, he gave you misinformation. He told you that the teachers are going to sit down with these children and teach them how to have sex for pleasure. Like, that's not going to happen.
At all.
Like, they're not going to sit, you know, kids down in a room and they're not going to say, okay, little Joey, so all you got to do is play with her here and she's really going to like it. Like,
Don't it?
they're not going to talk about things like that. They're going to talk about, hey, look, there are a certain number of STDs that are on the rise, that are rising in the United States. So here's what you can do to make sure to protect yourself if you do decide to have sex. Is that a bad thing? It pisses me off. It's so stupid.
I'm just amused by the idea of teaching Joey how to pleasure. So then you do a little of this, you know what I'm saying? A little of this.
I didn't get that graphic.
Okay, and then you do this, and then you turn her over, you know?
Sex, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and hold on, and then...
This is huge.
There's the anise.
Think about it. Think about it, Joey. Okay. They're not going to teach them how to pleasurably have sex, okay? Besides which, I think we got that figured out, okay? It's pretty self-explanatory. They teach them to be safe, and most of them, and in this education, they tell them not to have sex anyway, right? But not good enough for Southworth. He wants them to tell, no, you must grab the kids, tell them they don't have penises and they don't have vaginas, okay? If they think they do, tell them otherwise. Joey, you don't have a dick. And then that'll make it so. If you just yell at them enough, they're like, oh my God, I guess I don't. And it hasn't been, you know, up and at them the whole day.
Cannot play with them.
Cannot.
You know what abstinence-only education reminds me of? It reminds me of someone who has cravings for chocolate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who has just a natural craving for chocolate. And having a person hold a piece of chocolate in front of you and say, you are not allowed to eat this chocolate until you're 18 or until you're married. You are not allowed to eat this chocolate, and this chocolate is not good for you. This chocolate will kill you. It is bad for you, right? And it's like, it's just not realistic. It's not going to happen. It's like, this is the forbidden fruit, and you're not supposed to eat it. It's a forbidden apple, you're not supposed to eat it. It's going to make them want it more.
Instead, let's be sensible and teach you how to put a condom on that chocolate. Okay? And
let's teach you how to exercise so you can work that chocolate off in case you decide you want to have that chocolate.
Or how to pleasurably eat that chocolate. So, Joey, then you grab the chocolate and you lick it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, all right. Have I gone too far?
You're a little too feisty today.
Okay, I released a little too many Krakens there. All right, what's next?
All right, we have an update on a story that we talked about 6 months ago, and I love this story. 6 months ago, we talked about a gentleman by the name of Eric Williamson. He was arrested in his home because he was drinking coffee in his kitchen in the nude, and a woman was walking by with her son, and she happened to see him. Okay, so he was arrested for it. Now we have a video that will tell you what the outcome of his arrest was.
I can't wait for this. Go. Damn it. Hold on.
Release the Kraken.
Kraken coming up. Go.
On Virginia, where a man got international attention for walking around naked in his own home. The guy says he just wanted to enjoy his morning cup of coffee. Next thing you knew, he was arrested, charged with indecent exposure. Now the battle over what you can do in your own home is over, at least for that guy. Fox 5's Beth Parker live in Fairfax with the verdict. Beth?
Well, Brian, the jury deliberated for less than 20 minutes. They returned to the courtroom and declared Eric Williamson not guilty. In fact, one juror says she had a hard time not laughing during some of the testimony.
It was easy, you know.
It was easy. That's what one juror told us about the decision to find Eric Williamson not guilty of indecent exposure. But it has not been easy for Williamson. Police entered his Springfield home with guns drawn last October. He spent months fighting the charge in court, and today...
Oh, gosh, relief. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Weight off my shoulders after 6 months of this. It's unbelievable.
Williamson acknowledges he was naked inside his home on the day in question, something he says he'll be more careful about now.
I was not interested in exhibiting myself to anybody on the street, but in hindsight, absolutely. Now that that's happened, I won't have an open window in my house.
Yvette Dean says she made eye contact with Williamson, who was standing naked in the doorway as she walked with her son to school. She testified that she gave him the finger and had to shelter her son from view. Williamson testified he never saw them and was busy drinking coffee and packing to move out of the house.
I love
the correct response, which was his response, was to say, gee, I would have put my pants on and walked outside and apologized to her because I didn't realize she was out there.
A judge convicted him in district court. The appeal to circuit court brought with it a jury. Indecent exposure requires the government to prove intent. One juror said the prosecutor did not do that.
But people from the community are important to sit in judgment of people, not prosecutors, not judges, not police officers, because absent these people from the community, he'd have this conviction over his head for the rest of his life.
Now, Williamson says that the charge has created issues in the custody of his daughter and also cost him his job. He has been living in Newport News. He hopes to get this expunged so that he has a clean record. As for his accuser, she testified in court today, but she has chosen not to speak to the news media. Live in Fairfax, I'm Beth Parker.
A quick question for you. What about the prosecutors in this case? If it took a jury less than 20 minutes to make a decision and it maybe racked this guy's life, do they have any second thoughts about even bringing a case like this?
Well, they won in district court initially, and they had a victory on every single motion that the defense filed in this case. So they were doing quite well as it moved through the process, but once it got to circuit court and got before a jury, that's when they got in trouble.
Beth Parker, live tonight in Fairfax.
I mean, there's so many parts of that story I love. First, the initial confrontation with the woman and the guy. The guy's like oblivious. He's in his own house. He's making coffee. He doesn't know what's going on with this lady. And this lady's like, oh, yeah. And then she gives him the finger. And he's like, I don't think he even saw the finger, according to him, right? And then she's like, shields her son, like, don't look at the penis, right? He wasn't until you panicked. And then she's like, I saw him eye to eye. I saw his one-eyed worm. And it was staring at me in the eyes. And I kept looking and looking and looking. And I thought, that is nasty and naughty. Why are you showing it to me?
Ew, Jake! Jeez.
And then the cops go in, guns drawn. Why?
I know.
Was it that big? Was it that big a danger? They're like, oh, dude, we heard about this guy, man. Jesus. This whole community's in trouble. Guns drawn. Okay. We heard you were naked, sir.
In your own house.
In your own house. Now, finally, the thing that really gets me is, in lower court, he lost. The judge convicted him. Mm-hmm. Said, yes, you were guilty of being naked inside your own house. What the fuck else would I be naked? Well, I mean, what?
I think the woman did everything she could to make it seem like he was doing it on purpose. Like he was at the windowsill, like, you know, pressing his penis against the window or something. And she was making it seem that way.
I know, but when you actually went to the jury, and that's why we have a jury of our peers, and that's what I love about America, then they're like, no, the guy wasn't like swang, wang, wang. He was making coffee.
Right.
This whole thing's absurd. Let him go. Let him go.
Maybe Williamson should sue that woman for psychological distress.
Think about it.
Because now he's worried in his own home. He has to have the windows closed at all times.
You read my mind, and I'm not lying to you. And I said this before when we first did this story. I would go so far over the top with this type of stuff. But maybe because I'm a little disappointed in how he came out all like apologetic, even though he got, you know, he was acquitted from everything now. He's like, you know, if I'd have known, man, I would have done that, or I guess I'm going to have to close my curtain. No, fuck that. No, don't do any of that. Continue to do what you normally do. In fact, do it over the top. And I'm telling you, I'd come so hardcore to rest of these motherfuckers with everything they're doing. If they walk, I'm like, oh, she gave me a middle finger. That's you know what? I'm distressed. I'm distraught. What does that mean? What do you want me to do? Oh my God. I mean, I'd be so torn up over this. Now that I don't have a job in this guy's situation, it'd be my job to screw up her life as much as possible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude. And you got to think twice about this type of stuff. And you can't come out there and act like it's kind of your fault. Yeah, I do kind of walk around naked, but I shouldn't have done it.
I got a couple ideas. You guys are being civil about it, thinking going to lawsuit and stuff. First, I was thinking, you got to press your balls up against the window. Okay, like every time she walks by, be like, "Oh, what's up? What's up?" Right, and then your ass a little bit, fog up that window. But then I had a different idea. You know what? She came to your house. You should go to our house. Sit on the sidewalk with a pair of binoculars. Okay. The minute she gets naked for the shower, I saw her tits. I saw her tits. I had to shield my eyes. Okay, I'm taking her ass to court. Guns drawn. Guns drawn. I saw her boobs. Guns drawn. Okay, she's a menace to society.
My favorite part of the story is definitely when she gave him the middle finger. Yeah. That's my favorite part, especially since he had no idea.
Why are you looking into his house in the first place, lady? I mean, she's like, what's going on inside that house? Oh, that's a dick.
What does his son think of that middle finger?
Yeah.
What are you teaching your kid? I mean,
that you should look into people's houses looking for dick?
And then throw a middle finger. What does that mean? This kid's going to be distraught. He saw your mom get the middle finger.
All right. Can you get the sense that we're on the guy's side in this case and not really on the side of the woman who called the cops on him? Okay. I think you got that sense. All right. What's next? No, I got to take a break, man. I got to cool down.
Okay.
Release too many cracks.
Apparently this penis story got Cenk a little hot.
What's with me and getting excited over the penis stories?
I don't know. It happens every time without failing.
Think about it. Think about it. All right. Young Turk.